Hey everyone, Scott Cunningham, aka Scott C Business. Today we're going to be looking at how fake news progressed through the different phases over the past few years and how media outlets have reacted and changed their way of reporting, as well as how entertainment in general has changed to sort of align with these trends. So let's just dive in. How did fake news start? Well, it was really, as far as I'm concerned, it really started with clickbait, which was you'd see a headline that was completely disconnected with whatever you were about to read. The article had nothing to do with the headline, or the headline was just a blatant lie, and you were just going to some site that had a lot of ads, and they were just trying to rack up as much ad revenue as they could. And I remember Buzzfeed was huge for clickbait. Of course, they never got banned during all the wiping of all the accounts with clickbait, but they always had these things where you'd go and you'd click through like 20 or 30 images or slides or whatever, and every new page would have another set of ads for them to just get as much money as possible from you. And they would just put out these things all the time, and they're not news, it was entertainment, but it was so clickbait. It was like the definition of clickbait. And so usually what we see is these entertainment and media outlets usually ride out these different phases where they can get as many people to look at something and as much revenue and as much virality as they possibly can. They ride out the algorithm until the algorithm changes. So then what happened was clickbait started to actually get dealt with, and it was starting to die down. So they said, how do we transition? Well, the next move was fake news. It was not completely wrong based on what the headline said and what the page you were going to land on was, but it was greatly exaggerated, and or there was false facts in the fake news. It usually wasn't just like completely a lie, but there was that too. It was really just like, what could they get away with saying, and then chalk it up to, like poor evidence or like a bad eyewitness account or whatever it was. They were finding ways to come out with fake news, and again, people caught on to that. People started to call it out, and about a year ago it started to really get dealt with, but then it was changed to be a like political effort to silence people. So the fake news didn't really get the spark going yet. It was when we started to see very, very, very partisan reporting. So journalistic companies, like I guess like news outlets and alternative news, pretty much any kind of company that was going to bring content related to the news or politics or anything around that, including magazines, anything like that. They were all starting to come out with very partisan reports on whatever was happening. So they realized who their users were most aligned with. So if you mostly had left-leaning users, or if you mostly had right-leaning users, you would see them start to pander to those demographics so that they could get the most out of their users without offending the other side of their users. So they were really trying to just maximize their profits, again, as they've always been doing. So they rode this out where they were just, partisan reporting and telling whatever narrative that they wanted to tell. It usually wasn't always fake news, but it was very poorly reported on, and it was more so activism than it was journalism. And what we saw then was mass banning of conservative and right-wing accounts, and Twitter and Facebook came out with like licensing and regulation against whether or not you could what political ads you were allowed to put up, and you had to be all verified and ready to go. And they just made it harder and harder to really talk about politics in whatever way that you were going to talk about it, because they could police it much easier with all these new regulations and policies. And they've just been cracking down on conservative and right-wing accounts left and right. Finally, where we are today is we're in the transition from partisan politics and reporting on that to ideological reporting, where they're reporting on, before it was just the divide between the left and the right. And then they wanted to chop that up and divide it a million more times into all the different ideologies. So it's much easier to still have controversy and virality and still trend without having to just go left or right. You can divide it up so much more and get so much more going on. They're just focusing on every potential controversial issue and blowing it up and just really getting the controversy going as much as possible. And this is what I call fear/hate induced / ideological, the ideological phase. So if we had clickbait phase, fake news phase, partisan politics phase, we're on the ideological hate induced phase, where it's like they want as much controversy as possible. It's funny because they're out to police free speech in order to make everyone feel safer and have a better safe space. But the only thing I see in politics and news is just hate over all the controversy and the censorship and all the terrible, terrible things the institutions are doing and these companies. And they're not bringing any good to what they're trying to do. They're appeasing these tiny, tiny groups and then just getting everyone else riled up, and then everyone jumps in and has their say, and it's just a mess. But they get trending, and then they're viral, and they're getting their profits like they've always been trying to do. They're just riding out every single algorithmic phase as best as they possibly can until there's another change. And they're just going to keep doing this until there's no one left that believes anything they say or wants to hear any of the ridiculous things that they're putting out. And we're just seeing it getting worse and worse. I'm very curious to see what the next phase could possibly be. How much further can you continue to divide people against each other? I'm interested to see. I do think that we should be aware of everything that's happening. We should be having discussion about everything that's happening. But when you open a discussion and then you ban half of the side that might be on the opposing side of what you generally wanted, that's not a discussion. It is just propaganda, and they're making it more and more of an echo chamber, and they're pushing people to go to other platforms. So what do they think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? It's very, very interesting to see this entire thing play out. And honestly, at this point, I think it's going to just run down until all of the woke platforms are done and everyone's fed up with it. A lot of these news and media outlets, they're doing worse and worse, and they're scrambling to make money in any way they can. Buzzfeed, as less and less people are being tricked into their clickbait, they're starting to sell like cookware at Walmart. A news media, like a media outlet, is selling cooking utensils and pots and pans because they're doing so poorly that they're trying to make money any way they can off of their brand. Who is going to say, oh yeah, I really like Buzzfeed, let me buy their cooking utensils? They don't know anything about cooking utensils. There's no reason why you would buy their cooking utensils. If Nike came out with a lawnmower, I would have no reason to buy their lawnmower. It just wouldn't make sense. It would feel weird. It'd be like, why do you guys need a lawnmower? Like, are you struggling with your sales? I don't know. And that's what I think about with Buzzfeed, because people are not okay with all the reports that are coming out and all the articles, and it's so controversial, and they're just playing off of it. It's not like they're legitimately giving you good information and it just happens to be like controversial. They're spinning it to be as controversial as they can get it for the virality. Let me know what you guys think about this. Is our psyche being affected at the convenience and at our expense for their financial gain? What is happening right now? What is the next phase gonna look like? What do you think about all this that's happening? Am I just overestimating the legitimacy of this whole idea? What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested to hear from you guys. And as always, keep keeping on. I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business. Cheers.